I am very excited about our next guest joining us. He's coming from Charlotte, North Carolina in the United States. And I'm talking about Dinh. Hao is the Director of Global Digital Industrial Operations for Electrolux. He has over 20 years of leadership in digital transformations for Fortune 100 organizations and startups. He has had 2 successful education nonprofits focused on nurturing the next generation of innovators. And as if he wasn't busy enough, he recently completed a U.S. Navy SEALs training program. Hal, what a pleasure to have you with us. It's a real blessing for all of us to learn from a leader like you and a practitioner. So thank you for taking the time to share that expertise with our global audience today.
Great, thank you. All right, okay, so thank you very much for that introduction. I forgot that I did recently complete the Navy SEALs training, and I highly recommend that for everyone else. So if you're interested, I've got some contact information in, and we can definitely talk about how you can also become a certified Navy SEAL. But what I want to talk about for the next few minutes is really the human side of digital process automation. So before we go into the topic, I just want to highlight my experiences. As you know, the intro was given. I spent the past 20 years driving digital transformation for various companies, and some of these companies are listed here. And for sure, I'm going to leverage some of my lessons learned and also best practices around deploying digital process automation for some of these companies in the presentation that I'm getting ready to give. So really, there's 3 things that I'd like for you to get out of my presentation. The first is I want to explain what a human capital is, and most importantly, I want to talk about how you should make addressing human capital as a priority when you deploy digital process automation, so that it can help you drive success with your automation initiatives. And I want to talk about why companies are not focusing on human capital, and then lastly, go through a few examples how during my deployments of DPA, how when I focus on human capital, it really helped out driving success associated with that automation. So with that said, let's actually baseline ourselves on what type of automation I will be talking about. So today, automation is a hot topic, and listed here are 3 of the terminologies that are being used today. All 3 of these focus on the same goal, which is to reduce cost and also increase efficiency. One of the hot terminologies that are being used right now is robotic process automation. This is where you look at a process and you identify any type of repetitive processes that a human does, and use software to actually automate that process so that humans no longer have to do that, again, repetitive process. Business process automation is actually the oldest terminology of the 3 listed here, and this is where you actually use technology to refine your business processes. And then this is where you still use a human operator as you go through your automations. Today, I'm going to talk about digital process automation, or DPA. This is where, in today's world, where we have these digital platforms, where you use a standard digital platform that will enable you to digitize your processes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to talk about the human side of doing digital process automation. If you actually Google digital process automation and look at the market opportunities, you'll see that it's in the billions. And you also see here a couple examples that I got off the internet where it's double-digit growth for the forthcoming years associated with digital process automation. So for sure, the opportunities are there around using DPA to automate and digitize your operations. But as all of us are aware, when there's this type of opportunities, there's also going to be a lot of challenges. And these challenges are really associated to the change that you're deploying when it comes to DPA. So if you really think about what you're doing around DPA, you're taking a process and you're digitizing it, you're automating it, and you're changing the status quo. So that is causing change, and change is difficult for organizations. my argument is that the challenges that you have around DPA is not going to be related around the technology. And the reason why I say that is because DPA has been around for a while now. And also BPA and RPA are also around subsets of DPA, where it's been proven that the technology works, and we've got proven use cases on how to use that technology to benefit your organization around automation. So my argument is the true change or obstacles that you need to address doing DPA is not around technology, but it should be around what I call your human capital. And my definition, or actually the definition of human capital, is the economic value that's associated with your workers' experiences and their skills. And there are actually a lot of components that make up human capital. And some of those key components are education, training, intelligence, skills, and health, all associated with your employees. And what I'm going to do in the next couple of slides is go through in a bit of detail around what each of these human capital components are, and then talk about how addressing them is going to be critical for you when you want to drive success associated with your digital process automation. So to get started, let's talk about education and training. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll see that it's the traditional way that we provided education and training for our employees and for people in general, right? You go to school, you graduate from school, you get your first job, and then you get some additional training in your job that will enable you to get a promotion in your job, and you go through some additional training to accelerate your career and get promotions and to a point where it's time for you to retire. Okay, so that's the traditional way of providing education and training for our employees. But as all of us know, in today's digital world, it's not as linear as it was in the past when it comes to education and training. On the right-hand side, you'll see the actual education and training that's happening today in the workforce. You go to school, and then you come out of school, and you could possibly actually get a job that's not even related to the area of focus that you had when you're in school. And also, it could be that after a few years of working, you realize that you want to jump into actually a different career. And all these moves associated with today's workforce requires some additional education and training, more frequent than what was experienced in the more traditional education that I mentioned earlier that's illustrated on the left-hand side. So when you're focusing on DPA, you need to keep in mind that you have to provide more types of education and training associated with the automation and the digitalization that you're trying to deploy in your organization. So next I want to talk about intelligence and skills. Let's talk about the way it was in the past, where it's okay for employees to have what we call a fixed mindset. We brought in employees for 8 hours a day. We asked them to do the same type of work, right? You're an accountant, we ask you to do accounting work. You're a salesperson, we're asking you to do sales type activities. So in that type of activities, you encounter challenges, but you don't encounter challenges that are outside of your scope of work. So if you do encounter challenges outside your scope of work, you kind of avoid them. And you really don't pay attention to them. You let them fall to the side because, again, you're brought in to do a certain set of tasks every day. But everyone realizes that in today's world, our job descriptions are not what we actually do. There's a lot more to it. And that's why we should help our employees transition from a fixed mindset into what we call a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is one where we embrace challenges. So think about what you're trying to do around digital process automation. You're telling your employees, look at your processes and identify those processes that aren't working. And then look at ways to automate them and digitize them. And by doing so, they're going to encounter a lot of setbacks because driving this type of automation digitalization is not easy. So we need to get our employees to get comfortable with setbacks and actually give them the confidence so that when they encounter a setback, that they continue forward and persevere to get the job done. So again, when you do DPA, think about the mindset and the intelligence and skills that your employees have. Do they have a fixed mindset? If so, help them get to this growth mindset, because when you're in this growth mindset, it really helps accelerate your success associated with DPA. Just quickly, some numbers. McKinsey and Company did some research, and they concluded that if you, during your automation projects, focus on making automation skills a priority, and in regards to making sure that whatever automation skills and digitalization skills, gaps that you've identified in the skills, you resolve them, then by doing so actually improves your chances of having success when you deploy your automation or digitalization. So again, going back to, as I mentioned, for these human capital components, focus on them because they will increase your chances of success. And McKinsey has done surveys and researches to show that that is truly the case. And lastly, I want to talk about your employees' health. In this case, I want to talk about mental health. Think about, again, what you're doing when you're asking employees to digitize or deploy digital process automation. In their minds, what they're thinking is, hey, you're asking me to digitize and automate my work processes to a point where you're not going to need me anymore. And that's something that you need to address up front, because if employees that are involved in DPA have that mindset, they're not going to be fully engaged in making sure that your DPA process or initiative is successful. What you need to do is highlight to them that we are working on digitizing non-value and automating non-value work that you do, so that we can free up time so that you can actually do more of the valuable work that the organization wants you to do, so that you can make your job more valuable to the firm. So again, addressing the human capital when it comes to mental health. Also around health, let's think about the emotional components associated with digital process automation. Very similar to what I talked about when it comes to mental health, is there's going to be certain emotions that employees have when it comes to automating and digitizing their tasks. They're going to get scared, concerned, as I mentioned before, and these emotions are not good emotions for employees to have. And as I mentioned before, address these early on and let them know that, hey, these emotions and mental thoughts that you're having around the negativity around digital process automation, let's discuss that, because from an organizational perspective, we're not doing this to get you in balance in your emotions or your mental state. We're doing this to improve processes so that you can actually have a better work experience emotionally and mentally, so that you can add more value for your jobs and the tasks that you do. So having these conversations will be extremely valuable to make sure that you have successful digital process automation projects. And why aren't companies actually focusing on these human capital components? Because it is shown that when you do focus on them, you have a higher chance of success when it comes to digital process automation. And the answer is, it's not exciting, right? The exciting part about digital process automation is the technology. It's the flashiness of the automation tools, the digitalization, and so forth. The not so exciting stuff is the stuff that I just mentioned around human capital. Education, training, intelligence, skill sets, the mental and emotional health of your employees. Those are not the exciting components of digital transformation, but they are the very important components that we need to address. And they all involve these cultural changes that we need to drive associated with the digital process automations that we're trying to do. And I just want to highlight that these reactions that we have when it comes to human capital around negativity, around trying to drive digital process automation, it's part of our DNA. Our brain is structured to keep us safe. So anytime you try to challenge the status quo and you're trying to tell people that they need to learn some new skills or do new things, our brain interprets that as a threat. And it is our job, and our brain's been trained for thousands of years to help us get away from threat. So it's not that the person or the employees or the group of people are not trying to change, because they do see the benefit. It's just that in our DNA, we see it as a threat and we react accordingly. So it's really up to us to make sure that we address this type of human capital reactions to make sure that we do the right thing to get us on the right track when it comes to deploying DPA. So what I want to do now is talk about or provide some examples of how I focus on human capital to drive successful DPA deployments in my past experiences. So just as a baseline, I was asked to go deploy a enterprise-wide DPA solution. We selected a leader in the digital platform when it comes to DPA. And the goal was to get our 10,000 plus employees to use that digital platform to actually develop on their own their digital process automation solutions. So with that use case and framework in mind, what we did was we did a pilot, and we determined that our European supply chain team was really open to trying out digital process automation. And we definitely focus on the technology piece, but most importantly, we focus on the human capital. From an education and training perspective, we ensured from day one for the project, we provided some boot camp training around how they can actually themselves use this low-code, no-code digital platform to create their own digital process automation solutions. And throughout the entire pilot, we ensured that we had continuous workshops to enhance their skills and training around this digital platform, showing them what's possible, so that they're excited, they're trained, and they want to actually do the digital process solutions. From an intelligence and skills perspective, this relates to, again, that growth mindset. We realized that we wanted our teams to be more agile and more into trying prototypes and learning from them and understanding what doesn't work and improving those components. So we incorporated what we call our minimum viable products, or MVPs, our prototypes. What we did was train our employees to say, hey, let's develop a quick and dirty prototype, put it out into the world, and it's not going to be 100%, but it's going to have quote unquote mistakes, failures, and so forth, but that's what we want. We want the world to tell us what they like and don't like about it, so that we can come back and modify it, so that as we go through these MVPs and identifying what doesn't work, our solution gets better and better. And when we incorporated this type of thinking of fail and learn, it really helped us out when we did our DPA deployments. And then lastly, around health. This is, as I mentioned, the emotional and mental mindset around driving DPA, making sure people understand why we're doing it, not doing it to replace their jobs or eliminate them from the workforce. What we did was anyone that was involved or be affected by these DPAs were involved in our design workshops so that they can help us develop and co-develop this DPA solution. And by doing so, it helped us calm the nerves associated with the negative mental and emotional thoughts that are associated with trying to automate their tasks. So with that said, I want to quickly talk about our first MVP. Our first area of focus was trying to digitize a purchasing process, and it was a failure. And the reason why it was a failure is because the digital data that was needed to automate and digitize this purchasing process was not existent. So this was considered a failure, if you think about it, because we tried something, didn't work. But what we taught the team was the lessons that we learned around what type of data we need to have a successful DPA. We used that to actually deploy, on the next slide, a very successful DPA solution. We also highlighted to the team that since we learned that the data was not good enough for this automation early on, we saved the company money. Instead of going down and giving us a large chunk of money to go find out our data is not good, we got a small portion of money, did a minimum viable product, a prototype, and realized early and cheaply that this was not the right thing to do, and we stopped the spending. So this was a great way for us to save the company some money. And then most importantly, as we went through these learnings and failures and so forth, it gave our team the confidence that it's okay to go try, inexpensively, some new things. As long as we learn from it and get better from it, then that gave them confidence to go try some other things. And that confidence actually led to a very successful asset tracking solution that we did in our digital platform for DPA. Again, as I mentioned, from purchasing, our learnings around what type of data we needed to successfully deploy DPA. We took that from our purchasing learnings, applied that to the asset tracking, and was able to develop the right data structure. We also provided some additional training because in addition to the digital platform, we had a lot of new hardware, RFID tags, Bluetooth tags, scanners, and so forth that we need to make sure that everyone was trained on, so that when we deploy this solution, there was no skills gap that will prevent the successful deployment of this asset tracking solution. And most importantly, we made sure everyone that was going to touch this technology was involved in the design. Even the people on the forklifts in our factories, where their job was to go find, using this asset tracking solution, a group of parts and then move them from point A to point B. We involved them so that they can tell us what they needed and to ensure that they use the solution. And that again helped us develop a solution that was very successful during deployment. So with that said, hopefully I've given you the 3 key takeaways that I mentioned early on. Describe what human capital is. Again, the soft side of things, the intelligence, the skill, the training, the mental and emotional health of your employees, and why that is important to address and make sure that you have solutions for when it comes to DPA, because it does help you with your success around DPA. We talked about why companies don't focus on it, because it's not easy. It's not sexy, but it needs to be focused on. And then also talked about some solutions that where we did use our focus on human capital, and by doing so was able to successfully deploy DPA. So with that said, thank you very much for your time. These are ways to connect with me. I have my website. I post a lot about the digital transformation stuff that I do, and I love connecting virtually through LinkedIn. So please connect me through LinkedIn. So that is all I had. Thank you very much.
Hal, thank you. Thank you for guiding us through your experience set and insights on this transformation journey. I'm going to bring myself back up here. I'm going to be looking at the questions. We have some more time here to ask questions to Hal, so keep providing those questions. I'm going to start with a little bit of the fundamentals and an observation that has come up in some of the commentary we had. You know, it's very, you know, companies like to talk about, you know, people are our most important assets. But when you follow the money, often there's a contradiction on that. You see multi-million dollars, if not multi-billion dollars in, you know, investments in technology and assets. And you cannot say that the general ledger shows a proportional investment on people who supposedly are our most important asset. Why the dissonance? Why do you think that there is such a that those things don't match? What do you think is going on?
I mean, from my past experience is the fact that you can't measure people, right? I mean, when you measure something around, okay, you know, the ROI for a software deployment, the ROI for some type of technology, that is something that is a tangible number. But can you measure the mental health, the emotional state of an employee when you're trying to digitize their process and eliminate some of the work that they're doing? That's not easily, you know, measurable. So organizations have a hard time having that discussion because they don't have a number to look at. The way around that is in today's world, and I showed you, McKinsey did research to say, if you're doing automation and you focus on the skill set gaps and resolve them, you will have a 30% higher probability of success. So now you got a number. So now you can go back to the people that are deploying this solution and say, you know, we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's around the technology. Now we need to start looking at human capital. Oh, you don't know what that is? Here's what it is. And by the way, it is shown in a number here, 30% improvement, that if we do this right around human capital, we get a 30% amplifier on success. So look at the research that is done. Everything right now in today's world is digitized and is measured, and we can start bringing all these intangibles into the quantifiable discussion.
And I should turn on my microphone. What do you think that are, if you look at the skill sets that we can all develop in ourselves, in our professionals, in our organizations, in the world that we live in today, with rapid change, non-linear change, and that likely is to continue, if not increase. The question is, what are the skill sets that you believe professionals and organizations should be focusing on in terms of development, actual development of skill sets?
Yeah, that's actually something that I've done research on and looked at, and it's the growth mindset. Because to your point, things are changing so rapidly. So we shouldn't be going around and telling people, hey, go learn, go learn this programming language, go learn this technology, because we all know by next quarter or next year that could be something different. So what we should be training and advising our employees is to have a mindset where you get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then when you're uncomfortable, figure out for yourself what you need to learn. Because unfortunately, organizations have a goal to be profitable, make their goods, do whatever their vision statement says they need to do, and when they have time, determine what the employees need to go learn. If you're gonna depend on your employer to help you identify what you should learn, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball, because they're not moving fast enough. So you need for yourself to go into this or develop this growth mindset where you just start identifying, okay, I don't know much about digital process automation. I know that it's growing double digit. I'm going to go find out about it. And in today's world, you can go learn anything on the internet and get used to that, because DPA could be popular now. And then next month, it could be artificial intelligence associated with DPA. So then you got to augment your DPA knowledge with artificial intelligence knowledge, so that you can, again, position yourself to be extremely valuable for the organization.
In your experience with working many organizations across different industries, are there organizations that stand out for you that you may or may not name them, but are there organizations that are doing human capital development very well? And most important, what does it look like when they're doing it really well?
Yeah. So luckily, I'm part of a think tank, the Aspen Institute, where we are looking at human capital across the board in various industries, because that's what the future for an organization is, to be able to optimize your human capital. Because technology, for sure, gives you a competitive advantage, but we all know within 2 or 3 months, your competitors are going to have that same technology. But what you don't have that is common across all the employees is your skill sets and your intelligence around your employees. So to answer your question, I don't think anyone has got a silver bullet around this, but what we are seeing is organization realizing that this is important, because in order for us to succeed, we need to make sure our employees are happy, because our employees are the ones that are coming up with these new innovative ideas, these new things that are making us stand out in the workforce. It's not the technology, it's the people that are bringing technologies into the organization and applying it. So I don't think there's a silver bullet, because it's still something that all of us need to work on. I don't think that ever going to be one size fits all, but every organization needs to reflect back on what I mentioned around those categories around training, intelligence, the skills that you need, and then the mental, the health of your employees. Focus on that, because if your employees are strong in their human capital, they are unstoppable.
Those are great insights, Hal. Thanks for that. One or maybe a couple more questions here left. We have William Fuller asks, how are so many of our organizations today missing out on this potential? Why do you think organizations overlook the human capital potential that you're describing?
Yeah. I mean, I go back to the fact that it wasn't easily measurable, and now it is. So early on in my career, I was taught in order to get things done in an organization, you got to measure it. And I'm telling you, every organization that I work for, if you don't put some type of auditing process around it to say I need to improve by 10%, 20%, it's not going to get done. So now that we can measure it, people are focusing on human capital, and then also just society in itself is migrating towards the importance of humans. We talk about automation, we talk about digitalization, and it's driving a lot of disruption. But what we're learning is you can go disrupt and drive technology in a company, but if you don't have the people to actually use it and have the people to be evangelists to say this is the right thing to do, and I'm gonna use it and actually make sure it's benefiting, then what's the purpose of doing the technology if you don't have buy-in from the people that you're affecting? So I think there's a couple of things now that we're able to measure it, and then secondly, people are actually, companies are realizing that people, not the technology, is the true success when it comes to successful digital transformation, and companies are focusing on it now.
Very good. A final question here. You're a leader who is clearly, very big on continuous improvement, on self-improvement, on challenging yourself to become better. I think your Navy SEAL training is just one of the many different testaments to that. What is your advice for those who are in the audience right now, for them to remain relevant, but also not only remain relevant, but lead positive change for their organizations? What would you suggest they do? How do they improve themselves? Is there something that you would suggest they do to lead positive change in the decade ahead?
Yeah, we talked about earlier around what type of mindset we need, this growth mindset. So my recommendation, and I give this to all the people that I interact with, is lead by example. So if you want your organization to be more of a growth mindset where people are identifying the skills that they need on their own and go and get those skills, then go do it yourself, right? Go spend some time today and say, hey, what are some of the things that I'm seeing in my industry, my job, or maybe, as I mentioned, a lot of people are jumping from one career to the other. Maybe you want to be a data scientist now, right? Because a lot of people now are transitioning from many different backgrounds to be a data scientist. And data science is not, it's a point now where you can actually learn the basics and actually go into an organization and be a very good data scientist, and it's not as difficult as it was prior. So my recommendation is lead by example. Go find an area that you want to improve on. Go do it. Have that growth mindset, and I guarantee you, after you do it 1 or 2 times, you go, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. You get so confident that next time you're like, oh yeah, let me go try to do X, Y, and Z now, and you've gotten that confidence behind you that you can do it. So just go do it.
Excellent. Learn by doing. Well done. Dinh, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and leadership with all of us in our global community today. We really appreciate, and we wish you continued success on this transformation and leading this transformation journey for many organizations like you do.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dinh, Global Digital Transformation Leader at Electrolux Industrial Operations, and directly from Charlotte, North Carolina today to our global audience. Time does go by fast when you're having fun, and we are already at the end of day 1 of Digital Process Automation Live. So I want to thank you, all of you, for a wonderful engagement today. I want to have you back tomorrow to engage with 4 tremendous global thought and industry leaders who are presenting tomorrow. Again, same format, short presentations followed by 10-minute Q&A where you ask the questions that are most relevant to your context. So taking a look ahead, looking forward to day 2, we are going to start tomorrow with the co-founder and chief technologist for Camunda, a technology company directly from Germany. We're going to have Barton Rucker here with us talking about practical process automation. Let's demystify process automation. Let's look at from a practical standpoint. We're going to do that with an expert in the field. We're going to follow that up by 2 leaders of intelligent automation and transformation, Hema Gandhi, who is the CEO of Leighton Bridge, and also Robert Scott, who is the head of market services for Commerce Bank. They're going to be talking about intelligent automation as a transformation agent for organizations. We're going to follow their dual presentation with leading business transformation in times of disruption from COVID-19 to the 4th industrial revolution. We're gonna have Larry Boyer, who is an advisory board member for Open BDA, discussing with us what cross-industry digital transformation looks like for successful companies and how they are doing effective digital process automation. And we're going to wrap up tomorrow with a great speaker and practitioner from Toronto, Canada, who is applying these approaches of digital process automation to the metro system in the city of Toronto. And I'm talking about Steve Sarafinovsky, who is a leader of the Capital Projects Group for Metrolinx in Toronto, Canada. He's going to talk to us about the journey on how do you get a very traditional organization to adopt these new approaches, these new mindsets, these new methods for value creation and to enhance the customer experience on the transit system in Toronto. So wonderful leaders and practitioners of digital process automation speaking directly with you tomorrow. I'm excited to see you back at this same channel tomorrow to meet these wonderful leaders. And in the meantime, you have questions, you have comments, you want to thank those who participated today, please look up under Jose Perez on LinkedIn. Go there, make your comment, share, invite others to participate. We are over 2,000 right now and nearly 3,000 participants, hopefully by the end of this week, who are learning directly from these experts. So thank you for spending your day or morning, afternoon, or evening with us today. And we look forward to seeing you at the same time tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.